Hello, and welcome to another episode of Quickfire Reviews. I'm your host, David B., and it's been a while. I know, the last episode we did was back in October. Unfortunately, we haven't had time to get another episode of ePlace up. Plus, in the UK, we've had the lockdown, so that's put a strain on things. And also, there's not been as much content coming out on a monthly or even weekly basis. We did have The Mandalorian. Me and Helder both enjoyed that very much. And also His Dark Material Season 2. So there have been a few things. I guess even Wonder Woman 84. We've both seen that. And I could have done a review for that, but instead I didn't. I don't know why. To be honest, I think when we get back into the swing of things, me and Helder would like to do a review for all the DC films and all the Marvel films properly. I know that we were doing the comic book movie list ranked from worst to best. I may continue to do that, but as a solo project for the podcast, so I might just do an episode on my own and just run through the list, like 10 films at a time, just running them off, just saying what I liked and what I didn't, because it was my list in the beginning, and I'm sure Helder would like to have his own list maybe put up. But either way, as you can tell from the title, this episode or this review is about The Little Things, streaming on HBO Max in the US and theatres everywhere else. Unfortunately, in the UK, we are on lockdown and we don't have any theatres open. And if they are, they're hard to get to. And they're usually drive-through ones as well. But through the power of VPN and an account on HBO Max, I was able to watch this film. And I initially put up a status on our Facebook page saying that it felt good to watch a decent film after all this time. A decent film that was meant for the big screen. Yes, we're watching on a small screen through a streaming service, and it's not the same as going to the cinema. It never will be. And God forbid cinemas go out of business because of this pandemic. As soon as they're open, I am investing my time and money into supporting them. As much as I love Warner Brothers' deal with HBO Max to put up all their films on their streaming service for this year, simultaneously with theatre releases, I think it's a great idea. I think how they went about it, wrong, and you can catch my in-depth conversation on fellow podcast Bring On The Entertainment. You can find links for that on our Facebook page. But anyway, let's get back to the film The Little Things. Initially, I put up that I enjoyed the directing, the acting, and the script. And then I took the post down because I prematurely put it up the day that the film came out on HBO Max. I watched the film, but actually fell asleep about halfway through because I ended up watching it quite late that evening. And from what I saw, I did enjoy. So I thought, why not? I'm just going to put up a status saying that I enjoyed everything about that. And then I started reading other reviews and hearing what other people had to say and saying that it had a terrible script. So obviously I watched the end, and then I went back to the start of the film and watched it all over again. just so I knew for sure what I really thought about the film. And I don't think I'll ever put up a status again prematurely. I will actually watch the film properly from start to finish before putting up a status saying whether or not I liked it. After seeing the film for a second time, I still agree with my initial reaction. Now, I will say this. The film is slow. And there's no real pace as much as the story just goes on until the end. And you could argue, yeah, okay, maybe the story is stretched fairly thin, but I think that the atmosphere that the film has lends itself to the way that the story is told in this slow build-up. And it's not even really a build-up to a climactic end. It's more of a build-up to an ending that makes you think, makes you step back and realize that the characters that you're watching are flawed, especially our protagonists. In fact, you could argue that our protagonists are also our antagonists, and that there's no clear line between good and evil. It definitely sets itself out to portray a clear line, but by the end, that line definitely becomes muddied. So, quickly going through my little list, plot summary and initial thoughts. It's about two cops trying to solve a murder case. Yeah, and I've already given my initial thoughts. Overall, the film is good. I enjoyed it. And these reviewers that are saying that it's bad or giving it a low score are being very unfair, because they're judging it and comparing it to older films that were much better, like Seven, for example. And yeah, obviously Seven is a 10 out of 10 film. Yeah, that's my rating for the film. Seven is almost flawless. It is an incredible film. David Fincher really goes in hard with the story, and everything to do with that film is just brilliant. This film is a lesser version of it, but it's not the same. It's not really the same, other than that it's just a detective story, you know. So I don't know what these other reviewers are taking, but this film is definitely not 2 out of 5 stars or whatever else that they've been giving it on the lower scale. It's nowhere near that. The Rotten Tomatoes score is... the Rotten Tomatoes in general is a flawed concept. Screw Rotten Tomatoes. This film is great. And anybody that isn't familiar with Seven or other older films and watch this and enjoy it, great. Because the acting in this film is top notch. And I heard some people criticize Rami Malek in this film. Screw you guys. He's great. It's not his best performance. He's he's definitely better in other things, because this is a much more low-key role for him. But even so, he still plays it brilliantly. So, writing, the story and the dialogue. Now, I've already said that, the story is stretched a little thin, but the dialogue, the reason why I said the script was so good in my initial post was the dialogue. And everything the characters say, it feels natural. It feels important, and how it's delivered is what really engages, or what really engaged me as a viewer. So, writing, the story and dialogue. The dialogue, 10 out of 10. Story, more 7. Even though by the end, like the overall story, I did enjoy. It's just the sort of build up to that end, or the actual reason for everything, to show because I don't want to give the ending away, because it's a pretty big spoiler, and it's interesting. I think it's worth watching, especially if you have the same kind of thoughts that I did after watching it. It definitely made me think, and that's what's interesting about this film. Themes and tone. The themes and the tone are incredible. The atmosphere of this film is bone chilling, and flawless. Direction and pace. The direction, the certain shots in this film are incredible, beautiful, and just the overall framing of this film is very well done. The pace, I would say, like, scenes are paced well, but in the context of the story, they feel slow. So each individual scene, if you were to take each individual scene, they feel like they're paced well, but collectively, or as a film, not so much. But I digress. To cinematography, let's get on to the cinematography. Lighting and color palette, again, something. It's a beautiful looking film. It really is. Yeah. Overall, lighting and color palette, great. Acting, standout performance, all three of them, pretty much. One reviewer that I heard had said that Jared Leto played the same character from Blade Runner 2049. That was the most moronic thing that I've ever heard. No. Now, I don't think this is Jared Leto's best performance ever, but it still felt unique in certain scenes, and the way he presented himself. But yeah, he was definitely a standout. Rami Malek, again, standout. I think he was probably the weakest of the three, but Denzel was the strength of the acting in this film, as per usual. As anything that he usually does, he usually kills it. Yeah, he was great. Production, costumes, set, props, again, flawless. Whether or not this had a high budget, looked like it had a high budget. Same with the SFX and VFX, CGI. The CGI was non-existent, but makeup and the prosthetics, again, look flawless. The soundtrack and score, though. Now, this, I want to say that some of the music sounded happy, but it had a slow tempo, and so there were certain keys that were major that was used in certain themes throughout this film, but there was like an underlying sadness in the music and the score. The soundtrack and score, again, were a standout for this film. I don't know who scored the film. If I were to look it up, I would say, but you can do that. Overall, soundtrack and score were incredible. The intentions as to why this film was made, well, apparently the script was made 10, 20 years ago, but they never got to actually make it. The guy who directed and wrote the film, he never got to make the film until now, so he's been sitting on the script for a while. So intention on making the film was a complete script that had the potential of being a good film. And personally, yeah, my personal enjoyability was high. It was. And I think that the film was intended for fans of crime thrillers, crime dramas. And I think that this was definitely more on the drama side than it was on the thriller side. And by the end of the film, I can see why. Because you think that the film is all about the murderer, but it's really not. It really isn't. It made me step back and think about the job that these police officers have to do. So my overall score, rating out of 10, is a solid 8. It is a solid 8 out of 10. I was so close to giving it a 9. I was so close. So close to giving it a 9. As I said earlier, I fell asleep. So, yeah, the film did drag a little bit, but overall, it's a solid film, and it definitely does not deserve the low scores that it's been getting. To be honest, if there's not much else to be watching at the moment, so go and check this film out for the performances alone. From these 3 Academy Award winners, and you can see why they won their award, because their performances are top notch. So yeah, thanks for listening, and watch out for any more content coming soon. Hopefully me and Helder will record an episode of E-Place soon, and we can get back into the swing of things. So yeah, like I said, thanks for listening, and goodbye.